So many of you know that I've been involved with social impact, and that's an area that tries to bring together the good of the free market and combining it with entrepreneurs who are trying to do social good. And the idea is that you can do well by doing good. But I have to say, after years being on the front row of this movement, I've come to see a lot of the same integrity failures that undermine traditional business and haunt the social impact world. So many of these startups end up putting money in the pockets of clever pitch artists while doing little to save the world. Now, the story of big talkers who are going to do social good and pocket the money has become something of a cottage industry, and it also makes for some great TV. The story of WeWork sold the idea that we could have this common place and it was worth millions in investment in real estate. It all collapsed in failure, and the TV drama, we crashed. Then there's the Theranos scandal, where an entrepreneur lied about blood testing that landed her in jail, and a TV show, The Investor, Out for Blood in Silicon Valley. Then there was the incredible story of the Russian immigrant, Anna Delvey, who tricks America's leading investors into giving their money to her schemes, and that became the drama Inventing Anna. And it should come as no surprise that HBO is working on a new show about former Congressman George Santos, whose colleagues threw him out of Congress because he completely manufactured his career and bio to win his seat, and he raised funds for imaginary causes. When caught lying about being Jewish, he famously responded, "Well, I am Jew-ish." And today he makes money making birthday calls on Cameo. And the church has its share of scam artists. The prosperity gospel is throughout the United States, and it basically says, if you invest in me, your pastor, Jesus will give you prosperity and riches. As Pastor Joel Osteen says, God wants you to prosper financially, to have plenty of money to live out the life that God has laid for you. The winner in the gospel prosperity churches ends up being a pastor who convinces often poor parishioners to buy into their schemes. Movies on these series of churches and cults are another cottage industry. So it feels in many ways we're living in an age of the scam artist. The con men don't operate just at the level of big investors. They focus on all of us, all the time. I get multiple emails every day when I get calls on my phone telling me that I need to call someone because my package won't be delivered, or there's a cryptocurrency opportunity that I need to buy, or my bank needs me to share some information. Dating apps have become the new gold mine for scams. People who are vulnerable, they're seeking love and companionship. With their guard down, they develop a relation with people over months, and then after a while it's, you need to pay for my grandmother's funeral or invest in an opportunity. And so this happens on a fairly regular basis. And last year, Americans lost $12.5 billion in online scams. So it kind of feels like no one's safe. There's a lot of people out there conning us. And so Jesus has this line, be wise as serpent and gentle as doves. We need to be wise as serpents. And that's advice we need to listen to. We live in a culture where integrity is often in short supply. So what can we do about it? My theme this week is in my series that I've been doing on these commitments from the book about conscious leadership, and this week is focused on integrity. It reads, I commit to masterful practice of integrity, including acknowledging all authentic feelings, expressing with unarguable truth, and keeping my agreements. So the timing of this topic couldn't be better for the church calendar. It fits very well with today's message of Palm Sunday. On the Christian calendar, we celebrate the day where Jesus parades into Jerusalem riding a donkey, and he's treated like a king, and the crowd throws palms before him. He is at the height of his popularity. This Holy Week leads us to Easter Sunday, and it teaches us the challenges of integrity. Jesus enters the week as a rock star, and we sense this alignment in the world with his radical message of healing and love and forgiveness. And the public gets it, and they're excited. But it's more complicated. Behind the scenes, there's a lack of integrity, where the treasure of the disciples has become frustrated with Jesus' message. likely hoping for a political leader who would physically shake things up with the Romans. Judas loses faith and he sells out the Jesus movement for a payoff. He commits to being a plant and tells those who want to arrest Jesus a very good secretive time and place. At that Last Supper that Jesus is having with his disciples, which actually becomes the model for our communion service, Jesus tells everyone at the table that one of them is going to betray him. Judas then departs the meal, and he tells the people who are seeking Jesus where he can be located. So in the moment of the highest connection and alignment with God on earth, we experience the reality of broken promises and betrayal based on fear, money, and power. During the trial of Jesus, the disciple Peter, who has pledged that he will stand by Jesus through anything, denies him 3 times. And when the Roman leader of the day is looking for a way out of executing Jesus, he turns to the crowd, as we heard in the reading, and he offers Jesus amnesty. The crowd that a week earlier was throwing palm branches before him and saying, Hosanna, is the same crowd who cries out to free Barabbas. When asked what they should do with Jesus, they yell, crucify him. During Jesus' trial, he simply states the truth. Even when his interlocutor warns him that he has the ability to save his life if he says the right thing, he refuses to betray his integrity, even to death. Palm Sunday through Holy Week is a contrast of what integrity looks like and what it doesn't. It's a reminder for us today of the importance of living in integrity. So what is integrity? I think we tend to think of it as being honest, being ethical, and those are big parts of it, but I think it goes a little deeper. It's aligning our spiritual self with our outward self. It's consistency, it's integrating both. Each week in the confession, we read and speak about our desire to live a life that God would have us in thought, word, and deed. That's integrity. Most of us know when we are in and out of integrity, but over time, we can drift so far from self-awareness that we get lost in what's true and what's not true. Hellish forces work in our lives to disconnect us from our integrity by blaming others, blaming circumstances, and favorably comparing our shortcomings to those of others. Eventually, we risk believing our false stories. Working with an accounting firm the last 7 years, I discovered accountants have a unique perspective on the lies that we like to tell ourselves. Numbers don't lie, but people do. So surely churches would be immune to this deception. Nope. Churches and nonprofits who cloak their greed under the banner of doing good are often the worst, the accountants tell me. I'm told the process usually unfolds something like this. First, it's the pastor or the leader has a little resentment about how much they're being paid, not very good, not getting acknowledged, doing this hard work. They say they love serving God publicly, but privately there's a little resentment. And they realize they have unique access to the funds. Now, no one will notice if I borrow $500 and I pay it back in a few weeks. In fact, I'll pay it back with interest. But in 2 weeks, after taking the money, nobody noticed. Well, maybe I can take out $2,000 with a commitment to pay it back over time. But over time doesn't happen, and the voice says, you deserve more. They should be paying you more. No one will notice this amount. In no time, the church is defrauded and the minister goes to jail. And so the same process of listening to hellish energy of temptation breaks our integrity, and it breaks us as people. Deception requires a lot of life energy. People out of integrity are draining themselves. They might possess charisma and charm, but they're using precious life energy to remember the lies and keep the secrets. It eats them from the inside. We know when we're out of integrity when we say, we'll do something and fail to do it on a regular basis. We blame external forces and as our failure not to keep our word. We suppress our true feelings and present the face to those we meet. We grow comfortable lying. We expect that we're not going to keep our commitments. After a time, we fall out of our agreements with ourselves. We lose trust in ourselves. What's frustrating is that those living outside of integrity often seem to win in this life. Like Judas, they get their payday. But also like Judas, often it's a path to self-destruction. Only a day after accepting the payout for betraying Jesus, Judas hangs himself. It won't often happen that fast, but people, when we live outside of integrity, appear to be winning sometimes, but we're often being pulled down by hellish energy, and it doesn't turn out well for our soul, and the crash doesn't wait until the next life. But in the next life, Swedenborg describes that all of us go through a life review. In that review, we experience our entire life. We feel all the feelings we've experienced in our life and everyone that we've engaged with, good and bad. We're told the review is not judgmental. Instead, it is reported that people experience awareness, not shame. The only way to begin our life in the next world is to gain true awareness, if we can. The more deceived, the more shocking the review. So our goal on earth is to align our life as best we can to the truth. That requires us to resist the desire to point the finger of blame at others, but recognize that the only person we can change is ourselves. Even as Holy Week unfolds horribly, Jesus doesn't blame anyone. He even tells Judas, go do what you need to do. Peter puts forth a pretense that he's bold and unafraid. And Jesus politely tells him that he will deny him. And of course, Peter, for good reasons for being afraid, denies him 3 times. Peter serves as a warning that none of us are immune from this, and all of us can be forgiven. We need to practice speaking our truth no matter what the cost. In the story of Jesus, he speaks truth even as the interrogator warns him, if he doesn't defend himself, he'll be killed. This is the ultimate test of integrity. I have to admit, it's the most frightening for me. I admire famous people who are courageous and stick to telling the truth despite the threat of execution. I hope I never face that choice, but I don't know what I do. I do know that on a daily basis, I'm tempted to hide my truth to please others, and that's challenging enough. So too often we go along with the crowd that yells, Hosanna, to Jesus one day, and a few days later yells, crucify him. We fear not pleasing the crowd, and we go along with the mob. Today, the Christian is seen for many out of integrity. Instead of being examples of love and compassion in our culture, it too often represents hypocrisy and cruelty. Dr. Russell Moore is one of the leading evangelicals in America, and I really admire his integrity. He has lost various high-level positions in the Southern Baptist Church due to his refusal to go along with positions around sexual abuse and Christian nationalism. This week, he wrote a scathing criticism of the state of the evangelical movement in his role as editor of Christianity Today. It's worth reading the entire essay, but I thought this quote really summed it up. If we are hated for attempted Christ-likeness, let's count it all joy. But if we are hated for cruelty, our sexual hypocrisy, our quarrelsomeness, our hatefulness, and our vulgarity, then we should ask what happened to our witness. Character matters. It's not the only thing that matters, but without character, nothing matters. Without character, nothing matters. Living in integrity can give us a sense of calm in life's storm. We know integrity-based people when we meet them because they have a certain life energy, a calm nature, a peace. We know it when we see it. So this Holy Week, we can double down on our character and our integrity. Probably the most practical thing we can do is do what we say we will do. To make our agreement stronger, we can even add dates and times. Be specific. Make your word your bond. But equally important are the commitments we make to ourselves. That's where we often cheat. We often work hard to live into our public commitments, but lie to ourselves. Over time, we lose faith in ourselves. I commit to going to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to maintain my physical health. But after a month, I realized I've never gone to the gym. I haven't done so much damage to my physical health as I've done to my personal integrity, because I begin to lose trust with myself. And that opens up hellish energy. The next time I promise I'm going to do something to improve myself, the hellish voice says, why bother even trying? You know, you never kept that gym promise. Slowly, we lose our ability to make any commitments, and we can lose a sense of purpose. Swedenborg makes the point in today's reading that developing our spiritual life is more like building a house, brick by brick. It does not happen instantly. It requires day in and day out integrity. And though we can build it over a lifetime, we can destroy it with an act of betrayal. We live in a time when con men and con women aggressively approach us on a daily basis. Living into integrity is a daily challenge. Holy Week provides the pitfalls and the triumph of integrity. Judas teaches us we get betrayed and we betray others. Peter teaches us we deny our truth to please the crowd. Jesus teaches us that our integrity is worth dying for. The lesson of Holy Week is to seek to live a life that is rooted in deep integrity, a life where we align to our inside and our outside, a life where our word is our bond. Let us use Holy Week to examine our lives and commit to a life of integrity, supported by our angels and accomplishing God's greatest purpose for our lives. Amen.